Scott Onesie Wilson, my dude. What's going on, man? Don't forget to vote today. Took a look where to go. It's usually the nearest primary school. I know so many people that are just sitting at home all day today, but they did the thing where they said they were going to be on holiday and like traveling, just so they could put the go vote during the week. Kind of. I mean, the people that run that sort of the absentee or postal vote things are volunteers anyway. So it's not like it's costing taxpayer money. You're just taking up some lonely pensioner's time. So it probably is actually more beneficial to do that than than anything else. So what's this? Back here. I want to slave you. Yeah, I don't know. I just sort of think it's kind of like cheating. Like, I'm going to have to wait in a line of some sort. Because I didn't lie and say I was going on holiday when I'm not. Like those people. You know what I mean?
Spirit is dead.
That's all it is. If I cared enough, I'd cheat too. No. That's like saying if you cared enough, you'd break the law too. It's better than not voting. That is true. I always like the, I don't want to vote because I don't know what's the best interest of the nation excuse. And it's like, no, you're not supposed to vote what you think's the best interest for the nation. You're supposed to vote what's the best interest for you. That way they can take everyone's best interest for themselves because we are the nation. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, there's a lot of countries that already have a compulsory voting will almost never go to non-compulsory voting. And countries that have non-compulsory voting will almost never change to compulsory voting because the balance of power shifts. Or the favor of balance. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain demographic that will always vote a certain way because the majority of a demographic will always vote a certain way because they don't want to get involved in the actual politics. And that favors some directions. Non-compulsory countries are all about keeping people in the dark. I don't know, man, because, like, how much not in the dark are we, and we have compulsory voting? So all we have is a bunch of people blindly voting for who they think is best. And that's... And the broad generalization is that the majority of people that don't know who they're going to vote for vote Labour. Because the generalization is that the majority of the Liberal voters are up to date with politics. And it doesn't fit for everyone. It is a broad generalization that's been, I wouldn't say demonstrated. Well, demonstrated is not a bad word. Definitely not proven, but demonstrated. Where it's the opposite in the States, where voting's not compulsory, whereas so they're Republicans get a larger percentage of votes from the fact, or get a larger swing from the fact that there's a whole bunch of Democrats that don't vote because they sit at home. Labour is greater than Liberal anyway? I don't know. I think they're all a bunch of fuckheads. Pardon my language. We're going to have a change of government, which means a new leader, and I think it's the 10th in the last decade, despite the fact we're only going to vote for the second change of government. There is a vast difference between the two parties. A huge difference between the two parties. But without... while staying as neutral as I can, they're both idiots. If I was to put the parties as an individual person and not the person we're voting for Prime Minister, but if the party was Mr. Liberal and Mr. Labour, they're both idiots. And they spend more time promoting themselves to get elected for the next time we have an election than actually doing their job.
However, any certainty that I had as to her exact whereabouts
and the tantrums they throw, man,
stench of her presence. We shall have to deduce her location.
Like I've seen groups of
the area best.
Preschool kids that are more well behaved than our leading government. Don't like any mindset that makes them sound similar. Well, I can understand that, because anyone that likes a certain party is going to think that theirs is better than the other. But at the end of the day, they all act like children all the time.
Farewell.
Most of the time. Like, if they just spent time actually running the nation instead of just infighting amongst themselves, and they both do it, like, both parties have had internal change of leadership over, like, people wanting to be power hungry and becoming our prime minister without actually winning an election.
Sun is changing,
so they're both guilty of that.
There, Tolman. Don't you worry.
I don't know, just campaigning early just to get votes instead of doing their job.
Be careful.
They're terrible economists. Well, I agree with you there. I think the Liberals are terrible economists. I think the Labour Party is worst economists, though. So what chance do we have as a country? They both have their bad sides. And unfortunately, both of them, their bad sides outweigh their good sides. Because they both have good qualities as well.
Good to see you're still soldiering.
But those are the similarities, is that we're actually voting for the lesser of two evils. And that's what sucks, is like, from our position as Australians, is we're not voting for the best. Well, we are. But what we're actually voting is the one that's the least worst. Why do I say Labour is worse as an economist? Because, well, purely from an economical standpoint, they have twice brought us into deficit from surplus in recent times. Like, they just overspend. I think the Liberals underspend, though. So they're really good at saving, but they're not good at keeping things up with the times. Like, you have to spend money. You can't just not spend money and be like, oh, we saved a bunch of money. It's like, yeah, but you let everything fall behind. Whereas Labour will just throw money away. Now, things will stay up to date, but there's a lot of waste. So, and that's the upside. Like, neither of them can sort of maintain a nice status quo where we spend an appropriate amount of money and save an appropriate amount of money. Yeah, I remember that. But a part of that too is both sides. Like, he was given a lot of money to dodge that, and all they did by dodging it was just sort of spread it out longer than other countries in later years. And it's where both sides can take credit and both sides can take blame for that. Because the Howard administration set Rudd up with a lot of surplus to spend, but he spent it all and put us in deficit.
Clouded in strife.
And then
Lunaris,
the combination
Eternal
government
goddess of
after
the
that
moon and
from
her
the Liberals
sister
brought us
Solaris
back
of the
into
sun
surplus,
have
and the next
risen to
Labour government
reclaim
is
what
going to
was
put us
once
back into
their own.
deficit because they just
Siblings
can't seem to
equal in
find a
strength.
balance.
Mighty twin rivers converging, sweeping all before them. We are cornered animals, awaiting the deluge that will surely drown us. Yet there exists a pair of ancient treasures, the sun orb and the moon orb. They are our hope, our desperation.
Yeah, I mean,
Talakota.
whether we dodged it or not, I don't know. What does rankings actually matter, though? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a rank. It doesn't mean anything. So for people that have any sort of financial burden because of it, they don't care that, oh, but we're ranked whatever. You know what I mean? We're on track to be on surplus in 10 years? No, that's just wrong. The Labour Party's deficit grew and grew every year because they. But I agree with a lot of this. I agree with a lot of the spending though, and that's where it's hard because like they do spend money in good areas, but they overspend in those areas when they do it. Like there was the whole the roofing insulation problem. You know, which was let's give money to everyone and to put insulation in their roofs. So it sounds good on paper. But what they did also was that, like in our home, like the home we own, we used that grant to get insulation in our roof. So on one side, we got cheap insulation, but the other side is like there was no sort of quality control over the people that were doing it. So there was a lot of wasted money and underhanded, trade tactics to sort of take that money. And then there was the school, like the $1 million for all the schools that applied for it. And one of the schools that our kids went to got that money. So on one side, I'm like, okay, that's really good because the school that our kids went to used that money to improve their school. But on the other side, there was a school up the road that was 2 years old that didn't need anything. And it was a private school, so they were like way too much money. So they got $1 million, which they pretty much just put in the bank. And it's like, well, hang on. That's also a waste. So there's good and bad on all of it. And I think that the problem is we never seem to have a leadership that can maintain some sort of stability. And they're always both of them blame the previous. So whenever they when either of them make a campaign promise and they don't stick with it, they're like, oh, we can't because the previous government did this. It's like, well, you knew that when you were making these promises. So why can't you follow through?
Greetings.
And they both do it. I feel like figures from third parties, well, they do make a lot of sense. But at the end of the day, anyone can make it's the same as statistic. Or what's that quote about statistics? How, anyone can make anything with statistics, blah, blah, blah. You can look at a lot of things and find a positive light on it, and it doesn't make it not true. It probably is a realistic truth, but it doesn't make it any better for the situation if you're just trying to find an answer to go, oh, we're ranked better than this, or we're ranked better than that. It's like, what does that actually mean? We're ranked better than someone. What does that mean? It means we're ranked better than them. So, I don't get it. So that statement, we're ranked lower than Romania in schooling now. I don't know if their schooling's good or bad. I've never been to Romania. I can't judge their ability to school their children. I know a few Hearthstone players that are from Romania, or I know of them, and they seem pretty smart, and they went to school there. You know what I mean? Have you been to Romania? Do you know anyone that did go to school in Romania? I don't know, What rank is Romania? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of schools like in other nations that are worse. I don't think we can be the worst. I mean, I would in the cricket, but I have a fairly knowledgeable standpoint on what the rankings mean, like in the cricket world rankings. Whereas, because it's measured, like based on win-loss and like the results of matches against other ranked countries and what their rank was at the time that you're up against them. You know, it's a direct competition. But unfortunately too, like, that's also an unfortunate way of measuring it because it's based on bell curve numbers, and we don't grade things on bell curve numbers because we reached a point that we don't do that anymore. Because someone could have a same score as they had last year, but all of a sudden that changes their grade. What is the green? That must be from one of the... I don't know. Either way, like, there's going to be a change of government. We just know it, right? And even if there was or there wasn't, either way, in 3 years' time, we're all going to be disappointed anyway. Yeah, I agree with that statement. And on the flip side, I think the Labour Party spends too much money in areas that we do need to spend it in. So it's good because those things we need to spend it in get the benefit of it. But then there's money that got spent that didn't, like, it was a waste. And that's what I'm saying, why there's always seems to be the good and the bad. They just, why can't we get an in-between that spends a more appropriate amount of money? Like, sometimes they might underspend, sometimes they might overspend a little bit, but not have it be so drastic. Because you do need to spend to keep up. You can't just not spend and be like, oh, we saved money. That's bad. But you can't spend all the money and then put into debt and be like, we spent heaps of money. It's like, yeah, but you only need to spend X million and you spent 10X million. Well, I just gave a very specific education one, and the money that was spent in the insulation thing. Like they're two very specific examples. On the plus, and the education one came about because in the term before that, Liberal definitely didn't spend on education, and we needed to. But don't overcompensate just because something went missing. Just compensate appropriately. Did it? I don't know. And there's still a lot of there's still a lot of businesses that felt the effects of global financial crisis, but numbers say that we didn't, so we just have to take that as at face value. You know, because it's based on averages. You know, so a lot of companies that already make too much money continued to make too much money. And there was a lot of small businesses that lost money for that, but it balances out, so apparently we dodged a recession. I don't know, rich getting richer and poor getting poorer, you know, in my eyes that's generally bad, but because it balances out on books, can't remember what the thing's called, but there's a scale on, like, there's a specific scale on where the percentage of wealth lies in a country, which is generally deemed to be a good way to measure how countries go in terms of recessions and whatnot. And we do very poorly at that because we've got a very large percentage of, very small percentage of people with a large percentage of our money. In terms of income, not capital. Which is one of the arguments as to why we didn't do so poorly in the recession, or why we so-called didn't do so poorly, because those people are already well off in terms of their earning. So all they had to do was tighten their belts a little bit, while a lot of medium and small-sized businesses really struggled or went under. But the averages say we did okay. Okay, the averages say we did okay, but that's not... Is it really a true reflection? Maybe, I don't know. I don't have enough actual study in economics, but it doesn't sound right. TLDR. I think blatantly quoting something from something else, like, I don't know your history in, like, economics and politics, but I'd prefer to hear your words than have something else regurgitated at me. Yeah, but you can remember that's an average number. So when you look at growth, that's an average number. It's got nothing to do with like income spread or wealth spread. Well, so it depends on the publication. In fact, I'd probably trust your words more than someone with a degree in economics that's publicizing something, because it's not. It might be their words, but they're only going to publicize what the owner of their publishing house wants to say. And Murdoch owns the majority of the publishing in Australia, and is one of the people that wasn't as affected by the global financial crisis because he's Rupert freaking Murdoch. So I really don't trust anything that comes out of Murdoch Publishing. And I'm pretty sure The Economist, the Australian Economist, is a Murdoch House publisher. We experienced growth. We experienced growth because we dug up way too much iron ore, and the Chinese bought it off us and letting it rust on their shores, and have closed their mines down because we've devalued the price of ore at the expense of the current mining conglomerate's greed. Yeah, poor, it's Friday, and I had to stay up today, so I figured may as well keep streaming. Yeah, I don't like the idea of selling off asset, but the government was mismanaging it anyway. So the best solution was don't mismanage it, forehead. But the government incompetence were going to, so they did the equivalent of upgrading doors because they're crap players, and they all are.
Good find, Exile.
Spirit is spent.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that. Where's the thing? Nico, I can't find any more stuff. I found it all. I've got to go through there. Yeah, plus they're going to get heaps of value out of it because they, because of the way they treat their people. Whereas if we drop billions in something, you know, I think that's probably enough to put the lights on in a facility. They're so wasteful. Although, definitely pretty wasteful in China. Do I want to go that way? Die, idiot. That was a one hit. Yes, it was. I agree with you 100% on that. And it took longer than it went over time as well. And I have another shot at it, but that'll probably have to be it. Whoa. Oh, this. Okay. How do I get rid of that? What was that? The vial. Okay, I can use the valve. red valve. Oh, I see. Interesting. Alright, I'm down with that. I just got... It feels, but it's funny. All right. Wasn't got to put it. Let's resurrect it. Actually, I probably